What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Chillporeal. And tonight it's going to be a special night. We're going to be talking retro gaming. And with me for the first time on the Nerdporeal channel, we have the Quest 64 official account on X himself and Blue Sky. We've got Mike here. What's up, Mike? Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me.
So, Mike, I got to say, I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think it was real. I see a Quest 64 account with Quest 64 memes with character Brian. That's the little mage. That's the mage boy on the in the intro. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only person in the world that actually likes this game. So I had to follow your account. And then you ended up following me because I just had the shared history of just playing this game. And this was a unique one for me. So, and you obviously a big, N64 person. So I figure, we make a stream talking about Quest 64 and N64. So that's why you're here. And I saw your, I see your handle. I have your handle up right here. And it's like, I am the official, let me see if I can find it really quickly. I'm the official, the only account that, okay, this is what your bio says. The only account dedicated to letting people know what's fresh and new in the world of N64 and Quest 64, a game that hasn't changed for 20 plus years. I like that little snarky, thing right there. So it's just like the fact that it never got a remake or something. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Well, that's just a start. Imagineer is still a company that's the original publisher and developer of the game, and they're still making games. They like fitness boxing now. They've put out quite a few, I think 3 now, fitness boxing games on the Switch. They did a curling game. They used to do all the Metabot games, which were more popular during the 90s. And
did they do any of the Wii games like Wii Fit or
no,
Wii Sports or anything?
No, they did pretty traditional games up until the Switch, and now they decided that fitness boxing is their cash cow, which it sold. The last 2 versions have sold over 1 million apiece, so they're doing the right things, but they're ignoring Quest 64, and then obviously for people who like the game, that's a little annoying because it was one of their best-selling games. on the N64, but then, it was
Yeah.
one of their better selling games overall as well.
So I did a little bit of research because I actually, I mean, one future video I do want to do is a retrospective on Quest 64, and apparently there's enough out there. So I did some initial research just for the stream alone, and well, everybody knows about what happened with Nintendo from going from Super Nintendo to N64. So obviously Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, you had all these great third-party RPGs. You know, SquareSoft provided a whole bunch. Enix Corporation provided a whole bunch, and this is when the two companies were still, you know, apart. They weren't merged yet. So, um, me, for instance, I have not played any of those JRPGs. My initial uh, what got me into playing RPGs, my gateway was Super Mario RPG, believe it or not. So, and no, at that time, you know, I was about, think I was like the perfect age. I was like, I was starting adolescence when the N64 came out. I was starting, you know, middle school, my middle school years. So I always think, you know, NES was my really young days. Super Nintendo was my, you know, first grade through fifth grade, and then N64 was basically uh, primary, or not primary, adolescence, junior high, early high school, and then GameCube after that, adult. So that's how I like to, that's how you know, see the different generations. So seeing, like, you know, playing games like Donkey Kong Country, um, and playing games like Super Mario RPG, you know, really got me interested in 3D N64. And I remember playing Super Mario RPG. This was early '96, and I first hear about N64 because I think I was at a drugstore at the magazine section, and you know, if my mom's shopping, I always walk to the magazine section, and if I'm lucky, I'll find a issue of Nintendo Power on the shelf, and I'll look at it. And I saw like the new Nintendo 64. I didn't know, I wasn't like, is this a console? But then again, I saw like a 3D polygon figure of Mario, and he looked kind of similar to how he looked in Mario RPG, but he looked a little bit better, a little bit more defined, I guess, more 3D. And that's basically how I first heard of the N64. And then, you know, then I saw the commercials the following fall, and then you know, I played the games. I rented the system initially. I'm curious you remember how you got on the N64 in the first place.
We're probably about the same age, I think, because we have a
Turned- I
pretty
just
similar.
turned I just turned 40.
Same. I'm 40 as well, so we have a pretty similar timeline. But I didn't have Super Nintendo. I had Sega, so we went from like a ColecoVision to NES, and then Sega Genesis, and then N64. And my parents were pretty supportive of the whole video game thing. Like they played, not a ton, but they would play with us. And my dad was still going through college in his 30s, um, at least through the Sega time. And then when he graduated, I remember the N64 was about that same time. So that was like the big Christmas present because my dad would be home to play games with us and my mom. And, so they had picked it out because it was 4-player, and I have a younger brother. So it was the perfect thing
Same.
for our family. Yeah. So, um, I remember seeing magazines of it. Same. We weren't super rich, so I didn't have any
Same.
magazine subscriptions. It was going to driving in the town because I also lived out in the country. So going with my parents in the town. And then while they were grocery shopping, the grocery store had a video store like inside of it, which wasn't huge, but
Really?
it had magazines, and it was an IGA. I'm a Midwest guy. So,
Same here. I'm
yeah,
Chicago.
a little north of you. I'm in Wisconsin. We had IGA. It was a Cops Food Center IGA grocery store, and they had a tiny video game section. And behind that was the magazine rack. So it was either float around in the video game section and hope that my parents would let me rent something, which was still Sega at the time, or go to the other side and read the magazines while they shopped. And I remember seeing the N64, being very excited. And then we had next to that grocery store was a Prangy Way and a Kmart, and the Kmart they were the first one to have like a visual display up, and then the first the demo thing. So I could convince them to go over to Kmart for something so we could try out Super Mario 64 and see demo videos and stuff. So
Kmart. This is we're talking about the 90s when we're talking about Kmart. So
yeah.
did you rent so we my folks were going through a uniquely hard time with finances. So when Christmas of 96 happened, instead of getting the N64, I ended up getting Donkey Kong Country 3, which does have a cameo of the N64. You have Wrinkly Kong playing the N64 when you're saving your games in one of the animations that they used. So but I rented the system for a couple of years until 8th grade. My 14th birthday, my folks were like, you know what? You did good. You did good in school, and you're about to graduate. So here you go. And they surprised me with an N64, and they got Mario, and I got Mario 64. And this was my birthday is in November. So like I think the following day, I think Ocarina of Time came out, and this was 1998. So I ended up that ended up being obviously the gift I got the next month for Christmas. But those were the only two games that I played on the system, and Quest 64 was interesting because that was the first game I rented from the video store, an N64 game without me running the system itself. So I started getting interested because of playing Ocarina of Time, and probably because of I believe it or not, I believe this game, Quest 64, kind of really was a big gateway for me getting into fantasy. I mean, I have I have Lord of the Rings books right there. I have Wheel of Time. I've got into the fantasy genre because of those two games. But yeah, I have not played any other Super Nintendo games, and I was looking for a new N64 game to play, and this Quest 64 game I kind of like the way the box looked. It looked pretty cool, and I was like, you know what, I want to play another RPG that was not Mario. So that's kind of how I discovered it. We had a video store. We didn't go to Blockbuster because Blockbuster required you to have a credit card. My parents did not want to, register a credit card. So we went to one of those independent stores. And one thing about going to the video store back in the day, I would beg. This would be on Saturday. So we'd always go grocery shopping. And afterwards, I'd be like, can we please go to the video store? Can we please? I want to rent something. And my folks would sometimes be like, yes, sometimes no. And then so whenever they said yes, there was always, is the game in? Is the game in? Because the store only had one copy of each game. So if I wanted to rent our Mario RPG, there were weeks where it was out, and that was just a bummer. And I'll never forget those feelings. But yeah, the N64, I mean, I really enjoyed. I loved the weekends where I rented that system. They would allow you it came with two games. It was $15 at the time. This was 1997. $15, and you got two games to go with it. So it was either a Mario game or some other game. For me, I don't know if you played Shadows of the Empire, Star Wars,
Yes.
or Rogue Squadron was later. But Mario Kart 64 was another one I used to rent quite a bit. Trying to think if there was anything else that was worthy or that was early enough. I think Star Fox. Oh yeah, Star Fox. I didn't play the Super Nintendo Star Fox, but I remember seeing it at either a Kmart or a Target and seeing how it looked and how it played. And I played the demo. I was like, dude, I gotta get this. I gotta play this. So yeah. So I loved playing Star Fox. But when Ocarina, so Mario, I played all the way. I played all the way 120 stars. It was tough. It took me a while to get used to the depth perception because I was a 2D guy. I'm a 2D platformer guy. I'm a Nintendo guy. I grew up on Mario 3 and Super Mario World and Link to the Past. I'm like, what's this 3D stuff? How am I supposed to navigate? So there were so many times where I would just bounce into a Goomba or I'd fall off and I'm like, wait, I wasn't there. I was here. I thought I was here. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the same. We got lucky, so we were always behind on systems. I don't think that we got our NES until maybe 98, or I'm not 98, I'm sorry, 89. And then Sega, I don't remember the exact year, but it was a few years after release. So we got the N64 for Christmas of 96 because my dad wanted to finally, like, for us to be the cool kids, I guess, to like have something that was new. And it was actually ruined for us. They had bought it. They must have bought it in November, or they've been trying to buy it because it came out, a couple months before Christmas in the States. And they struggled because Nintendo was way behind on controller production. So they couldn't find the second controller. They knew we needed at least 2 controllers for my brother and I to play, even though they had only bought Mario 64. They were intending on buying another game, something that we could play together. And I don't know how long they were looking for controllers, but it was late December, probably the second week. And my dad, it was dark already at 4 o'clock or whatever it was. And my dad and mom were like, all right, get in the car. So we had to get in the car. I'm like, where are we going? Like, we got to go shopping. And we ended up driving to a Best Buy that was from our house. It's like 45 minutes away, maybe more. And they had didn't tell us why we were going or anything. And my dad ended up like finding the Super Pad 64, the black kind of oblong. It's actually one of my favorite. I've got a couple over there somewhere.
Show. I'm not sure. Show it to me. Do you have it?
Well, I would have to get up. So if you want me to get up and I can grab one. It's like
no, go grab it.
feet
Don't worry.
All right,
Don't worry about
give me
it.
a second.
So while Mike's doing that, I want to say hello to the chat. So who we got here? We got an angry Canadian. What's up, buddy? Thanks for dropping by. And we got Mike Pacific 414. Got Salty, you wacky kids with your Nintendos and Ataris. Well, every system is called a Nintendo. That's what I grew up learning. We got Jacob Ironside. We got Ms. Martin Muses. And we got on the X side, we got DL Weist. What's up, guys? Thanks for being here. We've been planning this one for like a month now, for maybe a month and a half. I need to talk about this game. Like, Quest 64 is just a game that just has to. I just have to let it all out. That's just how it is. So, I can't wait to see this controller.
Anyway, so this bad boy.
Oh my!
They're actually really nice. The Z button is like actually like on the hand, so it's not weirdly. And obviously, it doesn't have the trident look. Everything is off to the side. The only thing that sucks is because you want to hold it like this because that's what's but the stick, like, as you can see, like, so when you're holding it, your body wants to hold it like this, but the stick is up, so everything is kind of like straight up is not straight up so you have to like reorder, like your brain has to like meld with it to make it work. But it was we found that, and he showed it. Like, I was obviously in line with them, and I'm like, what is that for? And he's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, no, like I can see the packaging. Like, and I wasn't, I was 12, I think 12 or 13. And I'm like, what are you buying it for? He's like, yeah, we got you a system for Christmas. He's like, I mean, cat's out of the bag, because they had been shopping the 2 nights before at a couple other stores, and no first party, no third party, like no controllers anywhere. And this was the only place in the area he had called around, and they had one. So we ended up opening up our Christmas present that night, and we all sat around and played Mario 64 as a family. It was lots of fun.
That is so awesome to hear. It's funny, looking at the controller. You know what I realized? I realized, and I've gotten into arguments with people about this. Apparently, for all the years I've been playing 64, I've been holding the controller wrong. I hold it like this, and I reach my thumb to the center to move the joystick. Apparently, you're supposed to hold the paw at the bottom, and then use the joystick like that instead of holding it on the sides. Because that's how I used to hold the Super Nintendo. That's how I used to hold the NES. So NES controller. So,
and that's a point. That's like a point of contention. People are like, well, you need 3 hands. But if you look in the manual, so each game is different. If you look in the manual, like, so if you happen to, we were talking about renting, so you obviously don't always get the manual. But
oh no,
if you bought games, the second page or the third page of every N64 manual would have a blue chart that would show you the recommended handhold for that game, because games like what's another early, like WCW NWO, the wrestling
Hmm.
game,
Yeah.
you use the D-pad. So they would show your hands like you're talking about on the outside two prongs of the controller, because the only thing you used the analog stick for was to activate your taunt or your special move. So games like Mischief Makers, Kirby 64, the wrestling games, they all used, or Mortal Kombat, all used the D-pad primarily. So the manual would show you have your hands on the outside, and then for the games that didn't use the D-pad, the manual would show you the recommended handhold is your left or right hand on the center prong, and then your other hand on the outside prong on the right to push the buttons. So it was supposed to be a thing for the developers to be able to build their games how they wanted without having to be forced to use analog or forced to use D-pad or forced to use both of them. But a lot of people, to be frank, didn't read manuals. I wasn't always a manual reader either, except when we rented and they came with one, because you'd be, like I said, it was like 10 or 15 minutes just to home from the grocery store. So that's what I'd be reading on the way home would be the manual. So you'd see the recommended hand positions and stuff like that. So,
Okay, I think I do remember that. I probably N64. I don't see. I remember getting the manuals for whenever I run Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. The video store would Xerox copies, and they would
yeah.
put the Xerox copies in the and create a little booklet, and they would put that into the plastic case with the game usually. N64, I think they just didn't bother with it because they had new ownership by then, and they were lost. Yeah, they were the instructions manuals were always kept by whoever rented them, so I never got to see it. So I think the reason why I held it the way I did was not because of old habit, but I think one of the commercials, one of the N64 commercials, I remember seeing like someone holding it that way and then doing it, and then holding it that way and reaching out with the thumb to move the joystick. And I think that's kind of why I kind of adopted that. I had literally adopted that way of holding it. So yeah, the D-pad that was the other thing that baffled me, was very little use of the D-pad. Like Mario 64, no use of the D-pad. I don't
Yeah.
think they used it in Mario Kart, or even I don't even think I don't think in any of the games that I played. The games that you mentioned, probably because I haven't played those, but like I was going to ask, what games utilize the D-pad. So it's crazy. And I don't think Quest used D-pad, I don't think, right?
No, not for like movement or anything like that. And a lot of the games allowed you to switch, obviously change controls around a little bit and do what you wanted, but um the 3D movement, the platformers, things like Quest, they were designed around analog. So there was no, no switching to D-pad movement or anything like that. And that's what Nintendo was pushing. Mario 64 was a showcase for how cool that analog stick was. And I mean,
Mhm.
obviously it worked. We all ran circles as soon as we started the game and did the jumps, and got acclimated and knew that the analog was cool and we were going to use it. So
Interesting. So, I one thing. So going into so I figure we kind of segue before we get into Quest. I figure I ask you what your favorite games that you played the first couple of years of the N64 were. I mean, obviously Mario. You
yeah.
mentioned Mario, and you said I think the other. I forget if those other games that you mentioned were early games too, like the Mortal Kombat and the wrestling.
WCW NWO was. Mortal Kombat was a little later. So the system was in 96, debuted in 96. Between that and 97, it was pretty slim. Like you said, you rented, I rented too. We maybe bought one game a year. If I could afford one on my birthday, and that's what I did. My first purchase was Turok the next year on my birthday, and that was so we drove to Walmart, and I had $100 that I had saved up between birthday money and chores, and however I could scrap by grandma money doing things for neighbors. And Turok was 89.99 in 97, and then obviously $5 in tax and stuff like that. Yeah, I worked I'm reading your comment about Nintendo suing for copying manuals. I ended up working at Hollywood much later, and by that point they didn't even bother with manuals either. So it's yeah.
Yeah, okay, that makes perfect sense then.
But yeah, Turok cost me like 95 of my $100, and
Really?
there was not a ton of games. I think it was like 20 or less until mid 97. Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey, Wave Race Pilot Wings, Shadows of the Empire we talked about, Mario. I could probably sit and think of them all eventually. But you're right. There wasn't a lot.
What was the price? I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've looked at a catalog.
Mhm.
What was the price of games back then? Was it still $60 for N64 game? $60,
96 and
that value.
97, most of
Yeah,
them were 69.99, but a lot were then because like you talked about at the end of Super Nintendo and Sega, that was still 96, 97 as well. And those games, I remember Mortal Kombat Trilogy on Sega. My friend bought that, and that was 89.99 on Sega Genesis as well, brand new. It was the dark days.
because there were 3 games in one or something like that.
Well, just the end of the life cycle. Sega was trying to like
Hmm.
grind every bit out of it, and they were going into 32X and CD, so they were going to keep that system around so the new people would continue to buy cartridges because they didn't feel like their system was obsolete. And then Nintendo followed suit. Cartridges were expensive, so 69.99, 79.99. Like I said, Turok was 89.99.
That's crazy.
And
That
you had to like you had to do it. GoldenEye was the same. I think I spent 74.99 on GoldenEye, and that was my one game of the next year then too.
so yeah, Turok. Speaking of Turok, now I played it. I remember playing it at Funkoland. I think it was Funko at the time. It was Funkoland before
Yeah.
the in my hood, before GameStop took over all the video game branches. We had a Funkoland up near me, and I went there and I played a little bit of Turok Dinosaur Hunter, and I actually really liked it. I actually was able to adapt to the controls. But I never got around to running it or playing it. I don't know why. Maybe the video store we went to didn't have it, or I just wasn't interested, or forgot about it, or you know what? Maybe because I was 12, I was 12 or 13, and I was intimidated by M-rated games. I mean, yeah, what can I say? I wasn't one. I was one of the good ones. I was one of the good kids. What can I say? But I tried playing it recently. It came out on the Switch Online, Turok, and I tried playing it. I don't think I can play N64 controlled games anymore. I am so indoctrinated by the default controls scheme now. I tried playing GoldenEye. I've been struggling to get used to that. And I tried playing Turok Dinosaur Hunter, and I struggled to get used to that too. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with me. I don't know if I can ever play an N60. I don't know if I can play an N64 game the way it was with the inverted looking up and down,
Yep.
and just the yellow buttons and all that. How I'm playing Quest 64. I'm playing it on a keyboard. I'm playing Quest 64 right now on a keyboard. I'm using the Project 64 emulator to play. It's been so long since I've played anything on the N64. My brother has the system now, so
Yeah, there's a transition period. I know that's a big problem. So I like talking retro with people, and a lot of people are like to use the term, something has aged poorly, or it hasn't aged well, and that's one of my big pet peeves, because obviously the games haven't changed at all. Like you said, they're the exact same game. Like Turok now is the same game on N64 as when we played it 25 years ago. The game hasn't changed. We've changed. You and I have gotten
yes.
old, and modern control schemes have pampered us. And
Mm-hmm.
so I do play. I have kids. We have a Switch. I do play a pretty significant amount of Switch with them, but I don't play a lot of modern outside of that. So it's easier for me because most of my gameplay is catching up on my retro backlog. Like I said, I didn't have a Super Nintendo, so I'm trying to like play things I didn't play when I was a kid. And I play a lot of N64 because that's Like that's the crowd I run with, like that's the people I talk to daily. Those are the things I think about. So I still play, you know, weekly. So it never fell off for me, I guess. It's harder for me to go to the middling systems, things like uh, PS3, Xbox 360. Um, those controllers are nice, but they were, at the end of the PS2 era, um, the end of the Xbox era, like they didn't figure out that twin stick stuff till, Halo 2 was when it finally was like refined, as this is how we should play shooters now. And so there's a lot of jank in the middle there. So those ones are hard for me to go to, but I don't find as much jankiness going back to the N64 controller just because I'm comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there is a lot of weirdness, like even between, like you said, the default Turok scheme, going from that to Quake 2 to GoldenEye to Forsaken, and the other, even if you're playing all in the same genre, the control schemes are wildly different between the games. So it takes some getting used to, but I've just never taken my hands away from that controller or gotten too used to modern shooters because I just don't play a lot of modern shooters. We play Switch, we play things like, Mario Party, we play Kirby and Mario Odyssey together and stuff like that. So,
Mario Party.
yeah.
You ever remember the
Oh yeah, the
the tug of
circle burn.
war?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't the burn for me. It was winding up the flying Koopa thing in Toad's building. So you wound the Koopa up in Mario Party 1 and it would float, and it would tell you how far your distance record was, and I was convinced if I got over 100 feet or whatever it was, that there would be something to unlock, because there would be the next thing and the next thing, and I'm like, oh, there's got to be more things to unlock in Mario Party, because that was one of the games we owned, and there wasn't, and the only thing I unlocked was a huge burn on the inside of my hand. So,
Yeah, and I what's funny was I don't know how, but like right after I had it, my mom was like, "How'd you do that to your hand?" I was like, "Oh, I was playing this game." Oh, and well, all of a sudden I see my mom brings like a news an article or something, saying that Nintendo got in trouble with it with other people,
yeah,
and so they've sent like gloves or something for
yeah,
the kids or something to kind of fix it, I guess.
yeah. They were just weightlifting. It was only in New York. The New York State District Attorney tried to, people like to say it was a lawsuit, but it wasn't. They just said, "Hey, you got to do something about this." And Nintendo's like, "Well, anybody who sends the receipt in, we'll send them 4 pairs of gloves." Well, they were just Harbinger, which is still a brand today,
Mhm.
weightlifting gloves. They didn't even like Nintendo brand them or anything. They just bought a bulk shipment of weightlifting gloves and then sent them out. Supposedly, only like a couple hundred people actually responded with their receipts and got free gloves from Nintendo and stuff like that. But because by that point we'd already moved on to Mario Party 2, and they had gotten rid of most of the speed spinning games. There was still stick rotation, but it wasn't where you needed to go fast to
Yeah,
win.
I always wondered why Mario Mario Party wasn't re-released on the Virtual Console for the Wii and the Wii U. And then I remembered that's like, oh, okay. All right. Now, okay. But I think they put it on I think they put it on the Switch Online, I think, didn't they,
They
for the
did, but
N64?
yeah, yeah, they did.
But I think there's a warning now. They have a warning thing,
Yeah,
play responsibly, I guess. I don't know.
correct. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I Mario Party I did play quite a bit. I didn't have any friends. I didn't really was able to play multiplayer, so I always played against the computer. So it's still the game pissed me off.
yeah.
um,
The first one was pretty brutal.
first one, yeah, the first one was pretty brutal. And then when I was in college, I don't know which one was it Mario Party 3, because we all had N64s. Even though the GameCube and the GameCube Xbox era was in its final days. We all had N64s. We all brought our N64s to campus, and we were playing Mario Party 3, I think. And let's just say Mario Party brings out the worst in you think, like, Halo and Call of Duty bring out the worst in people. Mario Party brought out the worst in all of us. all of
Yeah.
us, like to the point where somebody turned off the game because they were losing so badly. So um, but yeah, Mario Party, Mario Golf, I played a little bit of. I didn't play any Mario Tennis. Um, have you played Resident Evil 2 on
Yeah.
the N64? How was that? I've not played. I've only played the re-release on GameCube. I'm
It was
curious how that was
it was good.
controlled. Okay.
I didn't have a PlayStation. I had a buddy that had a PlayStation. I lived out in the country, and I had one friend that was a big gamer, and we always bought opposite things. It wasn't on purpose, it was like a coincidence thing. So he had a Super Nintendo and I had a Sega, and then he had a PlayStation and I had an N64. So we were able to like swap systems and stuff like that and borrow each other's things. And I hadn't touched the original Resident Evil or really any survival horror up until I played Resident Evil 2 on the N64. I loved it. It's got some stuff like that's the only place there's some lore stuff that refers to uh Resident Evil 0, which was also going to come out on the N64, and then it just kind of got shut down because like you said, 2001 GameCube coming. So anything that came out in 2000 or 2001 for the N64 was already, it was being released in the graveyard essentially. Everybody was
Yeah.
deciding whether they were going to put their game on the next system or this system, or if it was going to be cheaper to just release a game on the PS1 instead because discs were cheaper than carts. And so it was hard, but Resident Evil was a marvel. That was a huge game smashed down onto a cartridge. It was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, I wish I didn't play until my buddy. Honestly, once again, M-rated games. I always thought like I always thought Resident Evil games were just like just violent, gratuitously violent, and that's all I thought it was. It was just a shooter that was just so violent and whatever, and I didn't think it would appeal to me. But I was watching I was watching one of my friends play it. And I was like, you know what? I think I can get into this. This is like Zelda but horror. They're like you have to collect things, you have to progress.
Mhm.
You have to progress in the mansion or in the police station. You have to find keys. I like all that stuff. Like I said, I'm big Zelda. Ocarina of Time was the game that um really helped get me reinterested in RPGs and fantasy. Even though Ocarina of Time I don't consider an RPG, but it got me interested in fantasy again. That's where I feel we should segue into Quest 64 now. So Quest 64 I know came out in 98, so it came out actually before Ocarina of Time. It came out actually so apparently the version that came out here was the one that came out first, and then Europe, and then a year later Japan, where they made all the last minute changes to make it more playable, I guess.
Yeah.
But I didn't play until like 99. I didn't play until after Ocarina of Time. So I rented it in 99, and the first thing I noticed was I couldn't save it because I'm like, since when do I need a memory card to save a game on the N64? I didn't need to do that with Mario. I didn't need to do that with Zelda. I don't think I even had to do it with Mario Kart or any other games I rented before. So I'm like, where did this come from? Why was this the case?
Yeah. Turok before that was the only other like big one I think that needed the memory card. Things like Mario Kart needed it, but only for ghost times. But Turok ended up being a big problem because when it released in Europe, Nintendo still hadn't released first party memory cards in Europe yet, like because there's a staggered release for everything. And so they needed to depend on third party companies to come and uh, save the day essentially, so people could actually save Turok and play there. But yeah, Quest was one of those too, and I'm sure it pissed a lot of people off because they were used to game saving to the cart, just like on Super Nintendo, and it just wasn't that way. So
Yeah, so I couldn't save it, and I had to, if I wanted to, keep playing, I had to leave the game on all weekend. So
yeah,
that's what I initially did. But I eventually, when we rented it again, I think I did get a memory. Excuse me, sorry, I got a memory card, and then I was able to play it proper. So yeah, so I consider this. This was beginning of high school for me. I started playing this. This was later N64. So I played this, and then much later. Maybe for a future stream, we could talk about maybe Aiden Chronicles and some of the later. And GoldenEye was actually, even though GoldenEye came out early, was one of the earlier games to come out. I actually was one of the last games I played out. I played on the N64 in high school because that's when I started getting into the Bond films. I started watching all the Connery films, the Roger Moore films, and Pierce Brosnan just did World Is Not Enough. And we were waiting on Die Another Day. And so Pierce Brosnan was still Bond. It was good. It was good times. It was really good times. But Quest 64 was, I wanted to get back into fantasy and I wanted to get back into RPGs. And what sold me was, I mean, like that, I love that intro that the game begins with, that very epic intro. But I liked how it begins with you're in the Melroad Monastery, and I have the game up. I'll share my screen to show people the just how much of a masterpiece this game truly is. I like the game, but it could have been better. Yes, this game, I don't know about you, but I feel like this game was incomplete.
Yeah, parts of it, especially if you go back and look at the betas and stuff. And I've met a few people that worked with the game, not on the game, but like alongside the development. And it went through a lot of revisions. The guy who wrote the strategy guide, the Prima strategy guide, said that they came with like 20 plus revisions to them. And every time their memory card had to be completely reformatted because nothing was working. Like, so they had to start the strategy guide essentially from scratch every single time, 20 times, because make sure that everything is correct, or at least broad strokes, things are correct, maps are correct, like audio is correct. And
were there supposed to be like dungeons in the game? Because I was listening to the soundtrack today, going to and from work, and there were tracks, especially tracks where you're leading up to the boss, and the track was long. Like the track was like 5 minutes long, and it only takes like 5 to 10 seconds to approach the boss in that one room, whether it be Silverring's hideout or Nepti's hideout. But they had some very long things, so I'm wondering if they originally had a longer, like they had like a dungeon or like a maze or something that was supposed to be longer, kind of like the other caves in the game that just take forever and ever and ever.
I don't, from what I've heard, there was never any, like, the levels are what they are. They weren't meant to be any longer. Obviously, it was already open world and it was weird for the system. But the reason the music is so long is Masamichi Amano, the composer, wrote mostly symphonies, and he was a classical composer. He wrote for like anime and movies and things like that. And he hadn't done a ton of games, and so he wrote and composed how he knew how to compose, which was long, epic scores. Like there's a lot of music in an N64 game here, like you said, and a lot of the tracks are long. So that's just how he do.
I think that there was the big draw. I think that initially that was the big draw for me, was hearing the first two tracks that you hear in the game, not the title card, but here in the monastery. You have this very warm yet very church-like, because I grew up going to church, so I used to go to Orthodox church or Catholic church every week, and this stuff was very familiar to me, hearing this type of music. And plus it was very warm. I would describe the Melroad Monastery theme right here, very warm, very lovingly embraced, like a family embracing you. But at the same time, you're getting ready. You have to get ready for your hero's journey is about to begin, and dangers are going to be looming and all that. And I feel like when you leave the monastery and you're outside in the Melroad campus, and you get the new theme, and it's basically, it just further amplifies the fact that you are about to go and start your hero's journey. And it's just like, you basically, hey, say your goodbyes, better say, better have better tie all your loose ends, because you're going to be gone for a long time.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I
a
think
big
that's
fan of Holy Plains right after that too, where you when you
dun
first
dun dun
venturing
dun
up.
dun dun
Yeah, oh
dun
man,
dun
like
dun 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 dun.
I totally when I get a couple beers in me out at the bar, like my wife is she puts up with it is the best way to put it. Like she's into gaming and stuff too, not so much on 64, but just playing with the kids like I do and stuff. But yeah, a couple drinks, I'll get certain songs stuck in my head, especially when if my phone goes off or something reminds me. That's an earworm that frequently comes up, and then I get really annoying about it.
So I gotta ask you. So what do you think of the what do you think of the combat here? I thought the combat was weird at first. So you basically you're walking and then all of a sudden you hit a random encounter
Mhm.
and you have this like this hexagonal, I don't even know if this is a hexagon out here, but you have this polygon field out here, which is basically the field of the entire field of battle, and then you have your own subfield, which is basically your the basically your field of motion. So you can't go beyond, you can't go beyond this at all. So I'm just curious why they I'm just curious why they did what they did. It's very they compared, I was reading this was compared to how Chrono Trigger did its battle, where you're just walking and all of a sudden you stop and you have to fight. You have to fight the enemies there. It's not like you go into another battle screen like Final Fantasy does. So
Yeah,
I thought this was very I thought this was I don't know. I still don't. I mean, I'm okay with it now and I figured it out, but you know what? All I did is I didn't know what to do. I just went up to them, just kept getting closer and just whacked them. I think I did a whole, I think the very first game, very first playthrough, I just whacked everybody with the
yeah,
staff. That's all I did. I didn't need,
Barbarian run. Yep.
yeah, I did that. I did that. So,
Yeah. Obviously, it was different. The only other game that was doing something like this the same way specifically was like Parasite Eve. It has the same kind of
okay, I
field
haven't played
with
that one.
um, same kind of thing, same kind of setup. And like you said, obviously, Japanese game developers were taking cues from each other. So yeah, they kept the. This is how they decided to go with the open world concept. Random encounter starts, you stay where you are, and a lot of people complain that they got lost playing the game because when battle would finish, um, you would be like, "Oh, I forgot which way I was going. I didn't look at." But the game actually, if you just wait, I always tell people like first time players, if you just wait, Brian does his little jump, his little flurry, and then
Yeah, in the
he
camera.
points himself. Yep. Well,
Hmm.
the game physically points him the exact same way as he was before you win the battle, and then the camera slowly, after about a second or two, pans around behind him, and you'll end up being like same orientation, same everything as you were before the battle started. But the
So
problem
even if
was
you're
is the
facing,
account.
even if you're facing the opposite way when you beat the when you win the battle,
Mhm.
he'll still do that. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
the
oh
the jump
interesting.
finish is different every time. So the jump,
Yeah,
you'll notice it doesn't spin the exact same amount or do the. He's orientating himself orienting
I didn't know
himself the
that.
way that he was. Yeah, and then the camera
Nice.
swings around and everything's cool. But the encounter rate is so high in this game, especially if you don't
Oh
stay
my
on like the little
gosh.
streets where you are. So
Yeah.
people would get in the one battle, they'd get their bearings, and they get in another battle, and then they'd lose it.
When I first played this, I thought if I stayed on the path, because very first technically RPG that I ever played was Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link on Nintendo.
Yeah.
I thought, if you stay on the path, you're not going to get attacked. Not in this game, buddy. Not in this game. No. And yeah, I was playing a few days ago. I was in the woods. I was in the woods, fighting. I beat Silvering. I was trying to make my way back because I didn't have. I don't think I had the wings, or I didn't have.
Hmm.
I didn't have the magic to transport. So I had to hike it back. And I kept ended up going back to Silvering's hide. I'm like, what the heck? What's going on? and and I think then I figured it out, like you said, you have to be patient and let the camera, guide you back.
Yeah.
Because I was losing my sense of direction. I was looking at I was like, dude, Brian, look, my name is Brian too.
Yeah.
The character's name is Brian, even though I think in Europe his name is Aryan or something.
Yeah.
Aryan. Aryan. That's not right. Aryan, and I think in Japan his name is Jean Jacques.
Yeah,
Like, I'm surprised they didn't just give him a Japanese name, just like
it's just published. Konami published it in Europe, so they did their own thing. They were allowed to uh, stylize it the way they wanted. So that Holy Magic Century, different game, and then Imagineer finally
honestly,
finished her up, and they did it a
honestly,
different way too.
honestly, I mean, even though I know it by Quest 64, honestly, I don't know why. I think Holy Magic Century is a cooler name, to be perfectly honest. I don't know about L-Tail Monsters. That's the Japanese name.
Yeah,
I don't know why they called it L-Tail Monsters.
because of the Altel book that's in the game. That's
Oh,
the
the
book
L.
that you
Oh,
choose.
yeah, that's right. Oh, okay. All right. The
So the
L.
original name was Holy Magic. Well, it was Crystal Stories, and then it was Crystal Stories Holy Magic Century Altail. So essentially, they just cropped her down. THQ decided now it's a quest, so we're doing Quest 64. But then the other two regions kind of took cues from the original name of the game and made their own spins on it. And it just all it did was lead to more confusion.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't have helped sales by having three different names for the same game, but
So I got a question for you. Between some of the music, especially the battle music,
Mhm.
and this is something I didn't even realize at first because I played this game first before I played a game, a certain Final Fantasy VII. That especially the opening riff of the battle, da da
Mhm.
da 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 da. It sounds almost just like the battle theme from Final Fantasy VII. I'm curious if there was any, maybe a little bit, hey, I'm going to borrow, maybe the composer, like, I'm going to borrow that and I'm going to do my own little thing with that.
Like
Da,
obviously he would
da,
never
da,
say
da, da.
that, but we
Of
all
course not.
hear it. But the
Yeah.
games are being developed at the same time, so
Yeah.
the likelihood that
Well,
I don't
97, I think
yeah,
7 came out in early 97. So
yeah,
development, the music was being composed after the game came out. So
yeah. We don't know if composers like shared notes or they were all friends, because there was a lot of composers working under pseudonyms and stage names and stuff like that too, because Japan was super strict about you work for us, one company, one,
yeah.
and a lot of composers weren't getting enough work for, you'd work for one company, you do one game a year. That's not necessarily enough, that's enough scratch to pay for the house. So they were working under different names and different companies. So
Hmm.
I mean, there could have been, little like backroom high fives, like, hey, here's this battle theme. Like, look at this, like, and then because they're not exactly the same, but yeah, they sound the same. And it's not just that, like, not these two games either. There's a lot of Japanese games that have similar sounding parts of them or riffs on each other, different games. And
I
but
think the
yeah, we all
most,
hear it. You're
yeah,
not going crazy.
the most notable one, and this was one even back then I figured it out, was hearing the Final Fantasy prelude, and was it Epona's Valley or something? I
Mhm.
was like, Epona. Oh, they took the name of, well, actually what's funny is this game came out first, but like they used the same name, Epona's the name of the horse. And
Yep.
Ocarina, I played Ocarina before this. I was like, interesting. So like I said, who knows where that came from, but yeah, the treasure chest actually looked very Final Fantasy as well. Sorry, I'll stop with that.
No,
I'll stop.
Final Fantasy got us here. So this was my second RPG. Right before, like, literally the game I was playing before I rented this the first time was Final Fantasy 2 by us, or 4, or whatever the numbering convention is.
Oh, the
It was
Super
Final
Nintendo
Fantasy 2.
one, the one with
Yeah.
Cecil. Okay, the
And I
four.
don't
Okay,
remember
yeah,
if we
two.
had
Yeah.
rented a Super Nintendo or my mom had gotten one from a pawn shop, like, cheaply, or if I had borrowed it from my friend after the N64 had come out. But I was playing Super Nintendo and the N64 at the same time, and I was playing Final Fantasy 2 right before this. And so I mean, that was my first RPG, and I was enthralled by that too.
That's a
And
great
that's
RPG to start with.
part of the reason that, like, this game Quest 64 like took me, like, grabbed me the way that I did, because Final Fantasy 2, you leave a city, and then all of a sudden, Cecil, Kane, they're the size of the city when you leave the city, like,
Hmm.
because that's how overworld maps worked in that generation of games. And then you turn on Quest 64, and I rented it for the first time, and you leave the monastery, and then you leave, you're working your way to Donner and stuff, and it's all like to scale, like it's a 3D world. Like what RPG is this? I was blown away. Like Brian is the buildings are the correct size, and the mountains and the trees are the size that they should be compared to him, and it was also cool. Like yeah, I was like
That's what I
it
liked
hooked
about
me.
this too. Actually, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
with you. I'm totally with you on this. That's what I liked about this too. Um, it felt like it felt like a real. I mean, this felt like a perfect way to continue just going on a hero's journey and going into an open world or an open game. Basically, I mean, to me, Ocarina was my first open world game, and I think this might be my second. So you rented? Did you rent this like when it came out, or did you not play it right away? If you even remember.
yeah, I rented it, not probably not the week it came out, because like you said, there was, we had a Hollywood video, and then a couple of mom and pops, the grocery store, and then we had a Captain's video. And my mom wouldn't drive us to all of them. We had to pick one. Um, so it was like a crapshoot, like you were saying. Either they had
Hmm.
something and they didn't.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing this in Nintendo Power 100, because that was a really big issue. I actually owned that one when I was a kid and now. And I saw it in there. I'm like, oh, I got to play that. And so you wait and you wait.
I
You
heard the
finally
hype
see,
was crazy,
yeah,
especially
and there
in the
was,
magazines.
I don't know
Because
about your Blockbuster or your Hollywood, but they had like a list on the door of upcoming games. So you always,
yeah.
like, even when you walked in, you're like, all right,
Hmm.
I got to remember 3 weeks from now, the game, I have to look for Turok. I have to look for Quest 64. I have to look for Wave Race. When those games came out, you're like, I have to play those. So I did. I rented it. And then we returned it. Like, I loved it. Um, we took it back, and my mom let me rent it again. And then she was, I have good parents. And she noticed after about the sixth or seventh time of renting it, she's like, all right, I get it. So she just bought it on a whim for us, which is something that like never happened. So she came home from the grocery store, and she had that and Quest 64, like groceries that I had to carry in. And then she handed me a bag of groceries that had Quest 64 on top. And I was like, oh, awesome. By that point, we had
That's
memory
so cool.
cards, and it was awesome. So.
Yeah, I did. That's really cool to hear. Um, yeah, I did end up owning this. So, um, I'll say this: when the N64, usually my video store, whenever a new generation comes in, new games come out, they usually sell their previous generation. So three games I've had. So I did that for NES, Super NES, and 64. So NES, the game that we were able to buy that they were selling off, I bought the game Little Nemo's Dream Master. That's a Capcom game.
Yep.
What's funny is it came out here in the US first, but it was basically a video game adaptation of the Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland, which came out much later here in the US. So I got that, and then Super Mario RPG was the one I got for Super Nintendo, and this was the one I got for N64 when they were selling stuff. And then after that, GameCube, and I was working, and after that, I never really rented games after that. N64 to me was like the final era. I was a kid, like I said, I was a kid, I was adolescent, and I was still, at my parents' mercy for renting stuff. So once I had a job, I never rented video games again. So I rent movies every once in a while, but not video games. And then Netflix came and destroyed the video store. My video store has been gone for 15 years now. So yeah. Moment of silence, everybody, for the video stores that got killed by Netflix.
We just closed not in my city, but the next city over. We still had a family video 2 years ago. And they just closed and sold all their fixtures and stuff, and something else moved in. But I had to go in there for that too. But I live a little more rurally, and there we held on a long time. Family Video had its hooks, even with Netflix. People like the elderly community still wants to rent. It's still hard. Even my parents, as technologically savvy as they are, still insist on buying physical things, which is cool because I'm a big physical guy too. But my mom has a Switch Lite and refuses to buy digital games unless I specifically bought them for her. She will only buy physical Switch games for herself, and she'll just go buy used ones and stuff like that, because it's just not, it doesn't click with her generation of digital ownership. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting more of the opinion that you don't truly own stuff digitally. Like they could somehow remove it, on you or something. So I try to buy physical as much as I can too, even though I do buy, if you can only buy it digital, I'll buy it digital.
Yeah.
Like how many times I've bought like Mario Brothers and all the virtual console games. I bought it for Wii, I bought it for Wii U.
Yeah. Same.
And you know where those games went? Oblivion. So that money I spent just simply went in Nintendo's pocket again and again. So I mean, yeah, but I like those games enough that I always want to have them, and I'm willing to do it. So yeah, it's a character flaw, everybody. It's a Chillporeal character flaw. So now you know.
I still do it, man. Like I said, I don't play a ton of modern, but most of the modern that I play, if it's not first party Nintendo, it's indie games now.
Yeah.
Like Thousand Times Resist was one of my favorite games of the last year. That was an indie studio this last year.
If you played Sea of Stars, I know that's one that I keep hearing about. That's very Chrono Trigger like.
I haven't. I'm very aware of it, but I've really been like down on RPGs. With 3 kids, I simply don't have time to dump.
Yeah.
Like I've really wanted to play Yakuza Like a Dragon and Infinite Wealth as well, because Infinite Wealth, people keep sharing me screenshots. Yakuza Infinite Wealth uses this kind of battle system, big octagon, small octagon, for their turn-based system, and it looks a lot like Quest 64. So I was like, you got to play it, man. Like this is your jam. You got to go try it. And I just don't have it in me to do the 80-hour thing. I just played Dark Souls this year for the first time as well, and I liked it. It's cool. Like I did Dark Souls 2 first, and now I'm just finishing Dark Souls 1. I'm at Gwyn right now in Dark Souls 1 remastered. And it's fun. I just don't have time for these games. So I usually gravitate towards smaller games, like 10-hour games, 12-hour games, and they're all indies and they're all great now. And they're digital only, so that you get what you get,
What's your preferred platform? Switch?
We don't have like a powerful enough gaming computer. We have like functional computers in the house, but not for gaming. And then we have an Xbox One and a PS4. My kids are just not interested enough in next generation gaming for me, and that's always my push, is like, if you guys want a PS5, if you want to play Astrobot, just tell me and we'll get it, and then it'll be for all of us. But like they play Roblox and they play like classic Nintendo stuff, and they're not into it. So until they are, I just don't buy the stuff. So Switch is the only modern console we have. So
save yourself money.
Yeah, that's yeah. But it also limits what I can play, like you said. Like I'm not going out and buying a ton of games for Xbox X or PS5 because I just don't have one. So.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I'll let you in on something. I've told a few people this. I haven't really been playing a whole lot of video games myself. I mean, usually I'll play like a video game, once in a while. I haven't played much, even with Nintendo, and I'm a big Nintendo guy. Like, if a 2D Zelda comes out or Mario comes out, I usually buy it right away and I play it right away. And I haven't even been able to stir up the motivation to even play those. So playing quests right now is what's kind of getting me motivated to play video games again. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or I'm just maybe I'm getting old. And like, if you ever seen that movie 8-Bit Christmas, 8-Bit Christmas, maybe I'm getting old to the point where I'm thinking, this stuff's gonna rot your brain, kid. But no, I feel like, because of doing the stream with you and playing quests, I mean, even I'm not married. I don't have kids, so I don't have the financial constraints or the time constraints that you do. Yeah. But I still, time goes by quick, and I have other interests. I read a lot more, and I do a lot more exercise, and I do a lot because I work I drive all the way to Aurora where Wayne's World takes place. You ever seen Wayne's World? You know,
Yeah.
it's all the way in the westskirts of Chicago, and it's far from where I live. So I don't have a whole lot of time, you know, to do anything. I usually like to relax. You know, I'll read something or find out what's going on in the world, and that's it. You know, I'm getting old. What can I say? You
Yeah.
know.
Heard and understood.
But I love, yeah. So what else was I going to say about Quest? I did take a few notes. So, did you ever play the Japanese game, or did you ever see like how it ended? So apparently, the Japanese
Yeah,
game had an epilogue
correct.
because
Yeah,
I
it
was,
has a screen. It's like a rolling like pictorial. It's really cool. I have the translated version. I've been trying to figure out the way to get it to go on social media, but it's so many pictures. It's like 60, 70, 80 frames, and making a video of it. Twitter doesn't like that. Blue Sky doesn't like that. But you can find one on like YouTube. But yeah, they have that. There's lots of other little changes. There's critical hits in the Japanese version. They they change the shape, the battle shape. It's not
yeah, it's a circle.
not
I saw that.
yeah,
It's
it because of the clipping, which actually leads to a lot of my friends speed run Quest 64. I'm part of kind of that community as well. And you use those little points to clip into different spots and do some crazy stuff with the environment. And but that leads to like regular player problems too, getting your octagon, your hexagon stuck places and weird movement. So they fixed that. Lots of visual things, like I'm sure you noticed, like you walk up to the street signs or the town side signs and you can't read them. In the Japanese version you can actually like read the signs and they
Mhm.
point you in the correct direction, like they'll tell you where to go and stuff, which wasn't in Quest 64 either. So there was lots of cool additional things that Imagineer wanted to put in the game and just didn't get to it, and then because they were trying to beat Ocarina to the shelf,
Yeah,
so so
they
then
did. They
they
did by
finished it
four
later.
months, but I mean, the game compared to Ocarina, I mean, Ocarina
Yeah.
is a game full of content, full of awesomeness, full of great dungeons, great boss battles.
Yeah.
This game, I mean, I like it, but it's more like if you're in like a cave or you're in a, it's just a path. It's usually a path. Maybe if you move to the side, you might find something. One I there is good, there is some decent exploration in this game. I like looking. One thing I do like is the elemental. So you see like a little wisp. If you
Yeah.
keep your eyes peeled around the field or wherever you are or in the town, you might see a wisp.
Yep.
Coming out of the ground. That's an elemental, and there are four elements. Your earth, wind, fire, and water. And when you find a wisp, or if you do enough experience, and you don't get experience in this game, I don't. How's that work with the elementals? Do you have to keep using the elementals to be able to upgrade when you're in battle? How's that
So
work with that, or
it
is it
works like
random?
it works. Nope, it works like Final Fantasy 2. So if you play in like Japanese Final Fantasy 2, not our Final Fantasy 2. So everything is use based. So you level up agility by running around. Like you can just run around out in the field or in towns, but you get more agility experience by. So like in this picture you have here, if at the beginning of your turn, if you started way on the left hand side of your octagon and
Hmm.
then you ran to the right hand side, while the enemies were attacking, that's the most experience you can get for agility, is the distance inside the octagon. That's it's like four times what you would get running around the field. So then agility makes you harder to hit. um you said you did like an all staff run where you were bonking things. Like obviously
Hmm.
that increases like the power of your, but it also increases your hit points when you do staff attack too. So everything has something tied to it. Using magic increases your magic points, which helps you level up your magic. Getting hit by magic increases your defense and stuff like that. So everything is, the things you do are what levels you up. Think of it like, or like Oblivion, if you've played any of the Elder
Yes.
Scrolls games, the same thing. Jumping around, makes you more
Hmm.
jumpy, and
I miss those
sneaking
days.
makes yes, makes you more sneaky. So Quest,
Acrobatics. Yep. Yep.
yep, much more simplistic version of that system, but that's how Quest or how you grind in quest. That's how it builds you and molds you. Is you do what you do.
So
So
what about the elemental? Do you have to get hit by an elemental or use an
nope.
elemental, or is it just random?
It's this, like you said, you can find those little wisps are one automatic level, but otherwise using your magic is what levels your magic. So it doesn't
Oh,
matter
okay.
what magic you use, even if you just used um, wind here. So even if you used like Cutter 2 over and over and over again, which is actually a really good way to level because it's per hit of the so like you shoot 6 of those little wind cutter things. If 4 of those hit, each one of those hits um, gives you experience towards your magic leveling up to the next level then. So wind is actually a really cool way to level up early, even though it's not the strongest magic that you can use. So
Yeah, Wind seems to be the one that I've watched walkthroughs. That seems to be the
mhm,
one that people use the most. Right now, in my playthrough, I have water set up because I'm trying to get the healing and
mhm.
the transport. I'm trying to get those. I'm trying to level up so I can get those abilities so that my life won't be a headache. But apparently
Yeah,
fire is like the most useless element in this game. Like nobody, like that's the one that nobody really levels up.
it's strong and it's actually really good. The problem is the whole last third of the game essentially. Every one of the bosses and enemies is fire based or is resistant to fire. Like so
Really?
using it is cool because it's strong, but when you get to the end of the game,
Oh, they didn't
it's less
balance it out.
useful.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's so bad. Oh yeah. Okay.
So
I
it's
could.
not useless, it's just
Yeah.
hard to finish a game like that. You can still, like you said, you just crank it to 50, heal yourself. You can beat just about anything like that. So
Hmm. One thing I've noticed with the enemies is like it seems like there's like a very limited type of enemy, and they generally shoot like they generally use like a lot of the same attacks. Like I've encountered a lot of enemies that will go up to you and they will do a somersault hit on you. Like I don't know if that's a
mhm.
kick to the face. I'm assuming it's a,
Y-
a kick to the face. And then there another one that's quite a bit that I see is the big giant boulder, which is easily I can easily dodge. So
yeah,
I see that quite a bit. There are a few I really do like though. The ones that one thing I remember when I first played it, the giant flying enemies, the
yeah.
dragon and the
The Wyron,
cockatrice,
yeah,
or
Wyron, yeah,
those were
yeah,
terrifying at first. Like I had to
yeah,
really, and even now, like they're dropping like there's this boulder attack where it's go boom, 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 and you're like, oh, am I dodging it? I can't see if I'm dodging it because I'm seeing overhead, so I can't
yeah,
tell. Oh, I'm lucky. There you go. Um, but yeah, you have those types of creatures. You have the wolf guy. I forget what they call the wolf guy. If that is even a wolf guy, I don't even know if that's a wolf or a
the
dog.
Hellhound, the red and black things at the beginning.
Hmm.
Yep,
Yeah. What about this guy? What about this guy?
that's I believe that's a goblin or a gobblegan. Yeah,
Yeah, he shoots fire at you.
yep,
These are the ones that these are the types
yeah,
that will somersault you.
yeah. The
Okay.
Marion Nasty.
And I see this guy, and then later on you see another frog prince with a sword. I couldn't
Mhm.
help but think if this was their way of saying, "Hey, we play Chrono Trigger. We
Yep,
know the character." And all of a sudden, the frog theme just popped up in my head. Dun 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 dun. Dun, that thing.
yep,
I, I'm just like, oh man, I just the way I see this game now is just I see it through such a rich lens of so many other games
yeah.
and properties. And what's funny is despite that, I was wondering if I'd still like this, and I still enjoy it. Maybe not just for nostalgia's sake, but well, maybe just for nostalgia's sake. So
It can be both. It's fine. It's both. But yeah, yeah. Obviously, Frog Knight. That yeah. We see the Chrono Trigger reference. We get it, and it was
mhm.
actually supposed to be a. Apparently, um, there's that encounter when you're in this area where there's a like 3 of them, and then one with a sword. That from a little data mining, apparently that was potentially a boss that was kind of like scrapped off later. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
we like the Frog Knight. We're big fans of the Frog Knight.
So the main story in this book basically is the Yellowtail book gets stolen. So the Yellowtail book is like the book of the Melroad Monastery. It gets stolen by Shannon, I think. Was Shannon the one that stole it? That's why she was close and in every inn that we go to.
Well, the story is that they don't tell you at the beginning that the book is stolen and that your dad, Bartholomew, went to find it. Um, you just happen to meet Shannon all the places. You learn later on that Shannon is a puppet of Mammon, the end big bad guy, and that she was kind of sent to guide Brian to him after he got the book and got all four of the elemental orbs. He just wanted the completed book brought to him. So everything you do is being guided by Shannon to get you to
Mm-hmm.
Mammon with the completed book. You know, just like Dragon Ball Z and like get the Dragon Balls together and then everybody flocks and tries to be the one who uses it kind of thing.
And so you have to, that's why you end up getting the 4 medallions,
Yeah.
basically the 4. I wonder if they got that idea. I wonder if Dan Zelda, I wonder, sorry. I'm not going to do that. But the 4 medallions, it brings me back. Oh, the four fiends, the 4
Yep.
crystal, or the 4 fiends
From
from
Final
from the
Fantasy.
early
Yep.
Final Fantasy games. And then there's a point where when you go into the Yellowtail book at the very end and you see the crystals all floaty and all that
Mm-hmm.
before you go into the Yellowtail book realm,
Yep.
which makes me think of another Final Fantasy. You seen the crystals up there? I'm thinking of Final Fantasy 2 again. Remember, you're in the crystal room
Yep.
and you're trying to defend that last crystal against Golbez, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not Golbez that comes, it's Kane that comes in, and Kane is completely brainwashed, and
Yep.
you try to fight him, and Cecil can't fight him because he's his friend, and you get defeated. And then Golbez comes in all Darth Vader like, and just takes you all out and everything. I mean, that's what it made me think. It's just iconic moment of that game, Final Fantasy IV. Definitely play it if you haven't.
And like you said, we get all these warm fuzzy feelings playing, Quest 64 and recognizing all this stuff. But the people who don't love the Nintendo 64 and don't necessarily like this game are like, oh, that's a rip-off. But then now you just mentioned Sea of Stars
Yeah,
earlier. That game is just packed with like nostalgic callbacks to all of our favorite um, RPGs of the last like 30 years. There's just all sorts of little nods to other games, and they're like, oh yeah, it's an homage. It's showing us everything we went through to get to this point, and everybody loves it. So it's so like subjective what people are okay with when they like something, and less okay with when they don't jive with it, when it's not their thing. This game was a product of its time. It wasn't Ocarina, it wasn't Final Fantasy 7, it wasn't anything. It was just Quest, and it was doing its own thing. It wasn't perfect. It came out at a weird time with a lot of really great games, and some of us latched onto it and some people didn't, and it's just kind of the way it is, I guess.
I got another question for you.
Yeah.
The name of the developer is Imagineer.
Yeah.
Did the Imagineer's a Disney thing, isn't it? That's what they call their engineers. So did they get in trouble with Disney for using that? And Disney, I'm sure, would.
I don't think that Imagineer's been around since the 80s, and I don't think Disney started like using that for their people until afterwards. I mean, that's kind of a thing that a lot of people, Disney probably at some point probably could have trademarked it for their
Yeah.
employees but I don't think it was ever like,
Okay.
this is us only. Imagineer was doing crazy stuff. They did so things like Doom and Wolfenstein, when those games would come out, they'd come out in like Europe or the States or somewhere over here. Well, they had to go back to Japan. Japan wanted to play Doom. Like, it didn't come out in Japan. Like that's,
Didn't they release those for Super Famicom or something?
yeah, they went
Yeah.
backwards. They did almost all of their work early was moving games from arcades and from the West back to Japan, localizing them for the Japanese audience. So that was their whole business for a while. Was just doing arcade ports and Western games being localized for Japan. One of the other Quest games, the Game Boy Color games.
I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that existed until yesterday when I
Yeah.
did my research. So is it basically the same game but top down, basically?
Yeah, Brian's Journey. It's kind of like the finished Quest 64, I guess. They rebalanced the elements. They added tons of story to it. Like there's way more dialogue. You can talk to everybody and get way more story about Silvering at the beginning, and he's like an environmental rights activist kind of like there's just all sorts of extra stuff to it. But there was actually two Game Boy games. There's also Quest Fantasy Challenge, which is like a puzzly game, but what it is it's Mr. Do almost to a T, but with Quest sprites put over the top of the Mr. Do sprites, and that's
Mhm.
because Imagineer and Sunsoft uh, were originally the people who did Mr. Do as well. So they just took a property they already had
Mhm.
and then just put Quest stuff on top of it. And they're like, all right, let's sell it again.
Mm.
Like
Sounds
that's
like
so if you
Super
like
Mario
Mr. Do,
2. Yeah.
yep.
Mr. Do. I've never heard of Mr. Do. What kind of puzzle game is that?
Kind of like the original Dig Dug.
Okay.
You kind of scoot up and down and move around like underground. Dig underneath something, it falls down. There's gravity, and then the enemies chase you through the tunnels that you've made. That kind of thing. So,
Okay. All right. Now Dig Dug I definitely played. I think I
yeah,
actually played Dig Dug 2 first.
the
I used
islands
to,
one.
yeah, the islands
Yeah,
one. I think yeah,
we own
I always thought that was the first Dig Dug. Like, no, that's not the first Dig Dug.
we owned that one too, and that was actually my first experience before we went to a restaurant out in the country that had the original one. I'm like, what Dig Dug is this? Like, I don't.
The Dig Dug. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I still have a special place in my heart for that particular game. That
yeah.
game, and I didn't get into Frogger until I was an adult. So I didn't play Frogger. But I did play Pac-Man. Pac-Land was the first game I played in the Pac-Man universe, I guess you could call it. Um, Speaking of which, apparently I've been hearing there's a Netflix series that's been covering video game adaptations. I forget what it's called. Have you watched it?
I
Um,
haven't. No.
they did one. They did an episode for Pac-Man. They have a weird take on Pac-Man. The guy that directed the horrible Terminator Dark Fate is the one that's running this. It's animated. So there's a Pac-Man one. There's a Warhammer 4K episode. There's a Mega Man. There's a Mega Man one, but the Mega Man one's short. But if there's any episode I want to see, it's the Mega Man one. But I forget what it's called. My friends were talking about it. I'll have to find that out for you. But it's a Netflix series that just came
I'll
out.
have to look too.
Yeah. So
I'm a big documentary guy, so nonfiction reading and nonfiction TV are kind of my go-to. So I'll have to dig into it.
mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, I mean, anything else about Quest 64 that I wrote down? So yeah, the looking for the magic was the thing. Was there ever an idea for using were they ever going to use a character that was going to use a sword or something?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, at the beginning, in fact, there's lots of, especially if you dig through some of the older magazines, there was 3 party members. There was Flora, which you actually showed in one of your screenshots there. She ends up being used as the model for the Princess Flora. She was supposed to be Nina, so she would have been your primary like swords person. And then Cozy, who's the captain of the ship, the pirate on the ship that you travel on later in the game. He was supposed to be the third party member, and he would be like the brawn, and then Brian would be the
Mage.
magic, yeah, the mage, the magic user, the healer, and stuff like that. So you're supposed to be able to. You can see screenshots from earlier. Not everybody is working at the same time, but you could pick one character at a time to go on adventure with.
This
And nope, not him. It's a bigger, burlier guy. He'd be inside.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, they do use the character models in the game, but the 3 character system got scrapped somewhere along the line too, and a lot of those big picture ideas. So the day and night cycle was supposed to be way more important in the game. Like NPCs were supposed to give you different dialogue at night instead of day, and different enemies at night instead of day. And there is a little of that, but not nearly as much as
Is
with
this
the
the
original
earliest game that did the day and night thing? I always thought Ocarina was the earliest game that did the day and night thing.
I think there was other games before this.
Other games before this?
But
Okay,
not
I haven't
maybe not on
researched it.
N64, but I feel like that idea, because I think of like Like, when did the first Golden Sun come out? Didn't that have day and night cycle too? I
Golden
don't know if
Sun
it
came
was.
out much later. As Game Boy
Was it?
Advance, I
Was that
believe. Yeah,
advanced? All right.
yeah.
See, I mean, this can't be the first game. There had to have been
This
like, even
game
think about
really.
like the light and dark world of Link to the Past is kind of that same kind of concept. Same world but different sides of the coin
So
thing.
does it? So does it not? So not what's awesome about Ocarina is you get to see like the sun go down and the
Mhm.
sun go up and all that. Is that? I mean, I haven't played this long enough to see that. Does it do that, or do you
Yeah, but to
basically?
a lot less dramatic, like a lot less dramatically than
Is
Ocarina
it a
does.
gradual, or do you have to like go
Yeah.
into a town or go into a forest and then come out? Oh, it's all of a sudden dark or
No,
something.
it changed. The daytime changes while you're like scooting around and running. But like I said, it's not like pitch black and daytime like in Ocarina.
So one thing that's interesting that this game gets, I don't know if this is I mean, I'm taking this as a more of a negative, the fact that there's no currency systems.
Mhm.
Like you had the rupees, you had the gil and Final Fantasy and all that, but you don't really get anything. There's no shops. Like you only get bread if you don't have any. You don't
Yep.
if you don't have like any. So if you have just one piece of bread or something, which is basically the minimal potion type of
Correct.
thing, you don't get any more. So you have to really keep your eyes peeled for treasure chests um and
Like
just I think you
grinding
don't you don't,
enemies and
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
grinding, yeah, once in a while I think an enemy will drop something. So
Mhm.
um
I'm kind of a fan of it. Uh, like, it was something different. Um,
it was,
it
yeah.
it kept so same as you. I like playing RPGs. I like, grinding, buying the next thing, having the next coolest sword, all that stuff. But in this game, because it didn't have it, I guess I didn't worry about it. But the like flip side of that whole grindy coin is I can't think of a lot of RPGs, especially this generation or even the generation before, where money like meant anything. After you got through the first third of the game, you could have, if you did enough grinding, because we were kids and you just, you get to a spot where you knew you could kill the guys and you're like,
Yeah.
all right, well, I'm going to sit here for 2 hours. I'm going to kill everything over and over again in these random battles. And I'm going to have so much money that it's meaningless. And that was so easy to do. And it's still up to RPGs today. Like even Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8 during this time, by the end of the first disc of either of those games, money was nearly meaningless. You get to the golden saucer and you could be the richest person in Midgar. Like, so I mean, not
I
having the money
yeah.
was weird, but in a lot of games, I feel like it's like overinflated for how important buying the next item is, because most of the stuff that you get in other games that's a great pickup is stuff that you would kill an enemy or find out in the wilderness or go on a quest, to find the ultimate weapons and stuff like that. It wasn't stuff you could buy. So
Yeah, or I would be the thing for me whenever I played RPGs was I would be so frugal with items,
yeah.
especially rare items like mega elixirs or
Hmm.
elixirs if you play Final Fantasy, um, that you couldn't buy, or if you did want to buy, they would be super duper expensive. So
Yeah.
I always depended on save points. So I always
Hmm.
bought, Final Fantasy, I always bought tents or cabins, and I would have and use magic to heal. And now this is here in this game. So in this game, you don't have to worry about, I mean, there are ends you can save and rest up, but the moment you use magic, you start walking, you automatically it automatic regen or automatic your
Yeah.
magic automatically regenerates. And so I just run for a little bit and I'll be back at the at full mana. So
Hmm.
I that's part of the reason why I've not had a hard time with this game so far. I mean, the
Yeah,
only thing
it's
that
not a super hard game. Like, to be once you get your bearings, like, and that's another, it's either you like it or you hate it. Some people are like, well, this is, baby's first RPG kind of thing. But other people are like, no, I want an approachable RPG that I don't have to sit through a half hour of cutscenes at the beginning. I just jump into the game and it's kicks me out of the monastery and I go, you know. So it's really a matter of taste, I guess. So,
Yeah, and I mean, to me, this was the perfect thing to start with. So it kind of introduced me to non-based leveling up and all that.
Mhm.
What's funny was I played Final Fantasy 2, the OG 2 on NES, or that came out originally
Yeah,
on Famicom. That got re-released for Final Fantasy Origins. That's how I played it, PS1. Um, I man, that game was a nightmare. And I'm like, how do I level up? And I didn't think of this. I didn't think of, like, how I was, leveling up here, because it just seems somewhere much more straightforward. Like,
yeah,
I could be the dumbest person ever, and I could still get through this. I could still get through this with a decent amount of power up or something, depending on however I did it. So
yeah. Two
yeah.
is brutal.
Oh
If you're not
man,
expecting it,
especially when you go to hell or pandemonium, and you're
yeah,
just, oh my gosh, you have no
yeah,
way to save it, or you have no way to, replenish. Yeah, you better hope you
yeah,
stay alive. So same with the original Final Fantasy when you're in the Chaos
yeah.
Temple at the end. So
And for people who played like those games, or so specifically, I like to reference Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior One here. That's the way you should be thinking about this game. A lot of people were like upset with the encounter rate, or getting, um like being in a non-party and the adventure being linear. Well, if you played Dragon Warrior or Dragon Quest, like that's Dragon Quest. They dump you in the game, send you out into the countryside, and kick your ass all day long. You
mhm.
die, you go back to the city. Like, and that's how Quest is too, which you said you couldn't get back after you killed Silverring. Well, the pro strat is just die, because you don't lose anything when you die. You don't lose experience, you don't lose your magic levels. You just get sent back to the last inn that you saved at, and they're like, all right, bye, go do it again. So if you don't have the wings, you just die, and you just go back and continue questing. So
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a matter of pride for me that I
it,
just don't want
yeah,
to
I
die
get
or
it.
something. Yeah,
No,
I don't know
definitely.
what it is. I don't know what it is. I believe this is the fourth temple, or this is the fourth boss. So yeah, so the other thing is, you go to a town, and basically, oh, there's this bad person that's blocking the
Yeah.
way. You got to take care of them and all this. So this was a troll right here. I thought I was going to be facing the fire guy, Fargo,
Mm.
in this temple, or
Yeah.
in this temple, but you don't. You fight. I think you fight one of his lackeys instead. I forget, it was
Yeah.
a woman
Shelf.
or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was his lackey, or I don't know who she was, but she didn't
Yeah.
have an element. She wasn't one of the elemental bosses. She was just, say, like a
Correct.
mid boss, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. She's very popular because she was in the commercial for the game, and they do like a very 90s, like, ooh, like a girl
Hmm.
oogling noise when you see her, and obviously she's voluptuous and not completely covered and all that stuff. So
We got a little bit of, she got, if she was gray, or if she had gray skin, she'd look a little more like Queen Beryl from Sailor Moon. You got that
yeah.
type of, yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, voluptuous. Uh,
But yeah, then you fight Fargo afterwards. But she says, I've been waiting here for my master Fargo for 1,000 years, or whatever she says.
yeah, because I believe in the town here, I forget what the name is. Limeland, right here.
Yeah.
I never realized it, but they look very
So
animated.
there's Kiliak. That's the other guy I was talking about.
This
That
guy.
guy on the right was the third party member that was originally in the game that you could play as. So
Okay. I got there was another character I forgot to mention, Leonardo, who was
yeah,
I think he's another mage. I think he's like Brian's rival or something.
yeah,
Would you was there it seemed like there was more to him than we got.
yeah.
Like,
Same. There was supposed to be more story to him, and then he ended up, when they were chopping all of that stuff down to get the game out. That you find him later on in the game, like much later in the game, but
yeah.
you just talk to him, and that's and that's essentially it. So
I'm wondering if, like, you were supposed to fight him, or if maybe took over, played as him at some point or something. I don't know. It just seemed like there's so many, like, I mean, it's a pipe dream. I feel the same about Zelda 2. Like, I could see like a reimagining of this. I could see, like, if you have the right people in, people that that love this original game, and have played a whole lot of other games, and to put a good amount of story in to make it very interesting, have more playable characters, have more dungeons and more puzzles, and not just paths and all that, and maybe a little bit more character stories, kind of like the way typical Final Fantasies Chrono Triggers are.
Yep.
I think this would be a phenomenal game. Like I like the world. I like this world is full of interesting characters. I mean, you got every character has a name. Like that was the other thing I really liked about it. Every character has a name. Like you see the name on the very top of the dialogue box right here.
Yep.
And there's no I don't think there's any useless. There's no stock character there. Every character had an identity basically.
Yeah. I share your sentiment. I wish they would have finished the game that they had in mind at the very least, like, followed their vision. I'd be hesitant to like change it too much if they ever did like a remake of it. Like I don't need everything to be changed. I just need the game to be finished, and there's Fargo. But I don't need the game to be like completely redeveloped from bottom to top and redone, and like, because then it, like you said, then it's
don't you miss this? Don't you miss this camera work right here?
I do. I have a very soft spot for the N64's swinging clipping camera. So that's, but yeah, like you add too much to it, and then you have a very generic RPG. You know what I mean? You have something that is similar to Final Fantasy or similar to the Dragon Quest games and stuff like that. There's his dad.
Yeah, I was like, this is his dad. I'm like, I didn't even notice. I got through the game. I'm like, where's his dad? Because I was invested in Brian's journey. I wanted to find his dad. Like, they didn't call him Bartholomew. They didn't. The name Bart. Didn't call. They just call him Bart. I'm like, Bart. Like, who's Bart?
Yeah.
Lord Bartholomew.
He doesn't even
Lord Bartholomew. I would have known. I'd be like, but I still would have been disappointed.
Doesn't even acknowledge his dad. Just talks. Mr. Bart gives him some more information, tells him he failed eventually, and on his way again.
There's one thing I think if they did do a remake, or if they did do a remake, I mean, I was when I first, so Final Fantasy wasn't the first RPGs I played. I played Mario RPG, and I played Chrono Trigger before that. And then years later, I played Wild Arms, and the main characters were silent protagonists.
Yeah.
So I always thought, Brian's another example of a silent protagonist. The issue is I don't think Brian has enough personality in this game. He's just basically you. You're just going around talking to people, and he doesn't really have a personality, unlike, Rudy or Mario or Chrono. Yeah. Especially through their actions and through cutscenes. I think cutscenes was a big thing. There's no really cutscenes in this. It's just you, like Correct. I said. But if they did do a remake, I think there'd be a lot of it'd be an open canvas for giving Brian a personality, give him a noble, selfless personality. At least that's what I hope to see.
I would, once again, I'd be okay either way. I just want to see the game like not fade away. I'm just trying to keep it in the collective unconscious is what I'm trying to do, So I'd be open to anything, remake, remaster, just a re-release on the NSO. Like that's not what I would love, but I would like all that stuff. I have a friend, Trey, he's Schooly D on Twitter. He's building the game again, like by himself essentially with some modeling help from friends, but he's in Unity just building the game from scratch, and seeing the game with modern graphics but still in this style is enough to like tide over for the next 10 years again. So, yeah, I don't have like a real good vision as to like what I would expect out of Quest if it were to come back or make a comeback. I'd be happy with just about anything. It's more or less, I just don't want my favorite game when I was a kid to die and be forgotten with all the other video games that don't get re-releases or are console locked to one system, and then that's it. You never hear about them again. So.
I mean, the fact that I have to play the simulated,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see, like a re-release or something in some way. That way I could support it.
And there's Epona.
Yep. So yeah, I figured, this was, I thought this was I think this is a great stream. We went over the 90-minute mark. So yeah, I think I definitely think there's more conversation to be told. There's still more N64 stuff. We didn't even get to Aiden Chronicles. That was the other RPG that I played. Oh my gosh. Like every time I hear somebody talk about permadeath, I think about that game because that happened to me with one of my characters. So I had to play it. I had to play it a certain way, but I think I'll have to revisit that. We'll have to revisit that later. And that'd be a great conversation for a sequel, a follow up. So is there anything? I always make this joke because everything has to have a sequel. Everything has to be a trilogy now. So even my Chillporeal streams with guests. So is there anything you wish to tell me? Are you my father's brother's keeper's former roommate? You know what that makes us? Nothing.
I mean, we're close in proximity. I didn't know we were so close in the country. So I mean, anything's possible. I mean, my dad's from Illinois too, so it's
I mean, who else is by you? Red Letter Media is by you too. They're in Wisconsin as well.
I am not aware of who that is. So.
Red Letter Media, they're known for their reviews and their Mr. Plinkett reviews.
Oh.
Trashing movies or trashing the prequels, trashing the Star Trek The Next Generation films. One of their guys, Rich, he's overweight and he has this high pitched cackle whenever they're joking around. Yeah, they always like to dunk on each other, make fun of each other. And they get thousands of views for all their stuff. They've been doing this since like 2010, I think. So they're one of the OGs on YouTube. So,
do you know Video Game Esoterica? He's another YouTuber. He's also Chicago based. I met him about a month ago now. What's video VG Esoterica? VG. So he does. He buys a bunch of old like arcade boards and is trying to preserve like lost arcade games and stuff like that. So his whole channel is built around that kind of thing, preserving video game media in a weird and funny way. He's a fun guy. So if you haven't seen any of these, but anyway, in your area too. So we Midwest represent here. We're holding down weird video game stuff for everybody.
So. Okay. So I know you don't do podcasting yourself, but is there anything you want to promote? Are you going to be on any other podcasts? Is there any other juicy memes that you're going to be putting on your Quest 64 official accounts on Blue Sky and X?
Yeah, always memes, every day, always memes. It's that's kind of so I'm a mailman. I don't have a lot of time to like sit and see what everybody else is doing, so I make memes while I walk, and that's my like comfort. My comfort food is just posting weird stuff. But I mean, I do like you said, I show up on this show. Upcoming, there's a few podcasts, but I'm sure I'll promote when we get there. I don't know any dates for certain, but yeah, I do what I'm asked to do on the internet, I guess. If people want me to be on a podcast, I show up on a podcast. Otherwise, I just do weird things. I also run I'm one of the admins of the N64 super group on Facebook. So if you are on Facebook still, which is kind of weird in this day and age, and you like Nintendo 64, I do the same stuff there, daily trivia, Nintendo 64, like preservation stuff. We go over, we do a lot of posts on the ROM hacks and the ROM community and anything to keep people interested in Nintendo 64, which is that's what I do best now. So
I've watched a few videos of ROM hacks of Mario 64 stuff and Zelda Ocarina of Time type ROM hacks. I've never gone around to actually playing them or making them myself. I made some for the Super Nintendo a few years back, just to literally to recapture my childhood, because I wanted to play Super Mario. I wanted to play Super Mario World, but with different levels, or Super Mario 3 with different levels. Just bringing my childhood back to me and all that. I did manage to do that. There's this Super Mario World, The Return to Dinosaur Land is a great follow-up to Super Mario World. It's tough as hell. Like you have to be smart to figure out especially how to how to get a hold of some of the keys. Like there's points where you have to catch a key from falling. That, at least that's how it was designed. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I actually
things
streamed that
like
when I
that, and
started this
like
channel.
Mario Maker and things like that. I'm already notoriously bad at games, but watching people be good at things like that, like I'm like, wow, that's not me. I'm never gonna
There's
be
a
that person.
there's a guy named Rio. He's got a beard. You always see him. I always see him playing like these super duper hard
Oh yeah, where he's like,
Kaizo,
yeah,
and he's like he knows exactly. He grabs a shell. He kicks it towards the wall. And he jumps off the ricocheted
Mhm.
shell. He knows how to do that. Like I'm watching. I'm just like I consider myself a Mario fan. I'm watching him like
Yep.
I thought I was here. He's like here
Yep,
in
not
terms
me,
of
buddy.
Mario skills. So
Just
um
finishing games is an accomplishment for me. So like playing
yeah,
Dark
same
Souls this
here.
year, man, that was an experience for somebody who's not good at games. So
Okay, so Dark Souls. Okay, you brought up Dark Souls. I started playing those games too. A friend of mine bullied me. Well, not bullied me, convinced me to play Elden Ring. So I started
Mhm.
playing Elden Ring, and I don't know how you play Dark Souls. Did you like get like help or like help from like uh from NPCs or something like that? I played every boss by myself, and I
Pretty much the same. I played Dark Souls 2 first on the and I played offline on the 360 because I have it in my house. So I was like, oh cool, this is a great way to play this. I already own the stuff. I don't need to do anything extra. That took I it took me like 60 or 70 hours. Like, it was a lot. It was a slog. There was some fights where I figured out that if you had full humanity, you could like summon people to go with you. But I didn't get any like online help because I don't even know if Dark Souls 2 has active servers on 360 anymore. So even if I wanted to get online help, I don't think I could. And I have a PS4, and that's how I'm playing remastered Dark Souls 1 remastered. But I don't have a PlayStation Online account, so
yeah.
I don't have any of that help either. So
You know why I stopped? So I was playing Elden Ring for a while, and I just stopped. I got like probably 85% through it, maybe
Mhm.
80% through it. I stopped because imagine you're playing Zelda, and let's say Zelda's a really big world. There's lots of pieces of heart, all over the
Yeah.
place. Um, let's just say you get another piece of heart. Now this is a hard Zelda. Like you need all the help you can get. You need all the upgrades you can get. Imagine if you got a piece of heart, but then the game says, no, you're at your limit. We can't give you any more health, even though you found this. That's exactly what freaking Elden Ring did to me when I found there's these little golden trees, and you can collect a golden seed from each of these
Mhm.
golden trees. And if you get one, you can upgrade. Then the next time you upgrade, you have to have two or three, and then it just the number goes up. Well, it gets to a point where even if you're at the right number, the game does not let you do it. Like the game just blocks you from doing it.
Mhm.
I'm like, what the hell is this? I've never heard of such a thing. And I was telling my friend about this. Oh, it's just because so you don't have to get everything. I'm like, that's stupid. Like that's stupid. And I just stopped playing. I just stopped playing as a matter of principle. I do kind of want to beat it though, but
Yeah.
that's kind of why I didn't have any drive to go back and play it. And the game doesn't get easier; the game gets harder as you get further into the land. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me. That's just that. I, I'm probably. I mean, I haven't even played Shadow of the Erd Tree yet. I mean, I've heard that was good too. So
I haven't played it. These are the only two Souls games I've played, and it was because of Elden Ring. Elden Ring kind of reignited the series after people didn't love Dark Souls 3 supposedly, and 2 wasn't exactly the most popular either, but Bloodborne was pretty well received, and but without um without Elden Ring, uh I don't think I would have even been aware of the series because it was such in my blind spot. Like I said, I have a wife and kids, and that was
yeah,
well, my kids were small. I missed like pretty much that whole era of games, like late PS3, early PS4, late Xbox 360. Like I missed from like 2009 to 2018. I maybe played like two new games like total, and everything else was just old
I
games that
feel
I
you,
had
man.
already. So
I feel you. By the way, since it's visible, I wanted to show you what I'm super proud of. I saw this at a where is it? There you go. I
Yeah.
saw this at a convention, and one of the things is Mario 2 gets little to no love. Like everybody talks Mario World, Mario 3, the original game, but nobody ever really does a tribute to Mario 2. So I saw this and I bought the my little tribute to Mario 2 right there. So yeah, so it's right there. Yeah, whatever. I'm not gonna play that anymore.
Love Mario 2. That was I think that was the second game we owned on NES. Because like I said, we were late in. I have a huge soft spot for that game. And
so what's funny is we actually got Mario 3 first. So 89 was when we got the NES as well. I think my parents, it was all over the news, it was all over the magazines and catalogs. So my parents like, okay, well, we'll buy this. They buy it. I was in special ed, so I had a hard time picking up how to play and all that. I thought it was a new type of cartoon because I grew up on Looney Tunes and watching DuckTales and a whole bunch of, I had a whole bunch of cartoons on VHS. That's all I watched. I wasn't interested in live action as a little kid, so I saw it as a new cartoon, and my folks were like they had to sit me down and get me to play because I wasn't paying attention. And I think my mom yelled at me, and then I finally started clicking. It started clicking, and I started playing, and I ended up getting better at the game than they did. And that's how my video game journey actually started. So yeah, and so Mario Brothers came with Duck Hunt on the NES, and then I think for Easter, the few months later, the Easter Bunny brought me Mario 3 and the Donkey Kong Classics, which is basically Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. on NES, and then I think a month later they bought me Mario 2. So I had all three games within like a few months of owning the system. So I played them all literally in order. We rented Mario 2 first before buying the game. So
great games.
Yes. So all right. Well, Mike, thanks for joining me. I definitely would love to have you on for part 2, Chillporeal part 2, talk more N64 stuff and whatever else you're interested in. There's the sky's the limit on what we can talk about. I felt like this was a great stream. I love doing these things with different people, and so like I said, everybody, stay safe and stay Chillporeal. Take care, everybody, and definitely follow Mike. Follow Quest 64 official on X. The link is in the description, everybody.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
No problem. And let's check out the outro that I made, which is basically the same thing as the intro, but with different music, the unused music, which I thought was epic. Where is it? Right here. All right.